Welcome to the Letter Room. Here, we explore words that once carried the deepest emotions, confessions, and hopes of history's greatest figures. Letters that, even across centuries, still breathe with life. Today, we open the pages of one such letter, written by Victor Hugo on December 31st, 1851, to his beloved Juliette Drouet. To understand the weight of this letter, we must step back into the turbulent world of France in the mid-19th century. It was a time of revolution, betrayal, and exile. Only weeks earlier, on December 1851, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, soon to crown himself Emperor Napoleon III, had staged a coup d'etat, shattering the fragile French Republic and dissolving its assembly. For Hugo, a passionate defender of democracy and a towering literary figure, this was not only a political catastrophe, but a deeply personal wound. He had raised his voice against tyranny, and for this defiance, he was forced to flee. Stripped of his security, hunted by authorities, he became a proscribed man, wandering from hiding place to hiding place, carrying only his pen, his convictions, and the anguish of separation from his family. This was the beginning of his long exile, which would last nearly 20 years, years in which he was physically absent from France, yet spiritually present in every word he wrote. And in this bleak landscape of loss and danger, Juliette Drouet remained his anchor. Juliette, once an actress, had devoted her life entirely to him. For decades, she was his confidante, his caretaker, his secret strength. While the world saw Hugo as the titan of French letters, Juliette saw the fragile man beneath the man who needed comfort, love, and reassurance as much as he needed glory. The letter you are about to hear is born from this extraordinary bond. Written at the close of a year of turmoil, Hugo's words to Juliette are filled with contrasts: grief and hope, despair and tenderness, exile and intimacy. He calls her his angel, his source of serenity, the light that entered his dark rooms of hiding. He recalls with vivid affection the little details of their stolen moments together, the small meals she brought, the anxious conversations, the caresses that gave him peace. Against the backdrop of political chaos, these humble gestures became sacred rituals of survival. In this letter, Hugo bears a truth often hidden behind the grandeur of his public image, that love, more than courage or politics, was what sustained him. Juliette was not just his companion. She was his sanctuary. He tells her that God never strikes completely, for even in exile, they were allowed to remain together. He compares her devotion to the stars giving light endlessly, without ever losing their brilliance. And in words that seem to anticipate the brevity of life, he imagines a future when his body will be dust, but her memory of his love will remain. The letter closes not with resignation, but with anticipation. On that winter night of December 31st, as the world marked the passing of another year, Hugo's heart beat with impatience, waiting for Juliette's arrival. His words transform exile into a place of hope. For though France had cast him out, love gave him a home. So, as you listen to this letter, imagine not the grand halls of power or the stages of politics, but a small, dimly lit room where a man condemned by his nation finds solace in the quiet presence of the woman who never abandoned him. This is not only the voice of Victor Hugo, the great writer, but the voice of a man in love broken by history, yet healed by intimacy. Now, let us enter that moment together. Here, is Victor Hugo's letter to Juliette Drouet, written on December 31st, 1851.
Victor Hugo to Juliette Drouet, December 31, 1851. My sweet beloved angel, here is the year coming to an end. A year of sorrows, a year of struggles, a year of trials. The year that now begins will be the year of hope, of joy, and of love. Do not doubt it, for it is my whole heart that tells me so. I am proscribed, banished, exiled, separated from my family, poor, wandering, wounded in the heart, and yet, when I turn toward you, it seems to me that I see God Himself smiling upon me. You have been admirable, my Juliette, during these dark and difficult days. If I had needed courage, you would have given it to me. But what I needed was love, and blessed be you, for you brought it to me. When, in my dangerous hiding places, after a night of anxious waiting, I heard in the morning the trembling of my door's key under your hand, I forgot everything. I no longer felt peril or darkness around me. It was light that entered. Oh, let us never forget those terrible yet so tender hours when you were by my side in the intervals of battle. Let us remember all our lives, that little dark room, those old tapestries, those 2 armchairs side by side, those modest meals at the corner of the table with the cold chicken you brought, those tender conversations, your caresses, your worries, your devotion. You wondered at my calm and serenity. Do you know where they came from? They came from you. You see, God never strikes completely. He has cast us down, but together. Blessed be His name. In these years that have passed so swiftly, alas, your soul has poured out treasures of tenderness, devotion, fidelity, and virtue, and yet that beautiful soul is richer than ever. Your eyes have given me so many smiles, your lips so many kisses, and yet your sweet face is younger than ever. You have given everything, and you have kept everything. I have had everything, and you still have everything. Only the stars of heaven can give their rays without ceasing, without ever losing their light. The year that has just ended has been sad. Half of my heart has died. Oh, how sweet you were to me in those hours of anguish. May God reward and bless you. Your love, oh my angel, is like virtue itself. I await you tonight with great impatience. It seems as though the beating of my heart wishes to hasten the ticking of the clock to bring you to me more quickly. And when I shall be nothing but cold ashes, when my weary eyes will have closed forever to the light, say to yourself, if in your heart my memory still lives, these words: the world had its thought, I had his love. Victor Hugo.
The letter you have just heard is more than a simple love note. It is a testimony to endurance of 2 souls bound together against the storms of history. And history, for Victor Hugo, was never gentle. Only weeks before he wrote these words, France had been shaken by the coup of Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, soon to proclaim himself Emperor Napoleon III. Hugo, who had raised his voice in defense of democracy, found himself hunted and condemned. For his courage to oppose tyranny, he was driven into exile, a punishment that would last nearly 20 years. First, he fled to Brussels, then to the island of Jersey, and finally to Guernsey, one of the Channel Islands, where the winds and waves of the Atlantic became the backdrop of his life in exile. There, far from Paris, far from the great salons of literature and politics, Hugo created some of the most powerful works of his career. Les Misérables, The Toilers of the Sea, The Man Who Laughs, books that not only shaped French literature, but spoke to the struggles of humanity itself. Exile silenced his voice in politics, but it gave wings to his imagination, and through his pen he became greater than the empire that had cast him out. Juliette Drouet remained by his side through it all. She had abandoned her career, her independence, and devoted her entire life to him. In Guernsey, she lived in a small house near his, writing him a daily letter every day for decades. In those notes, sometimes tender, sometimes playful, she gave him strength, and he, in return, gave her his unwavering affection. Their relationship was far from conventional, but it was constant, and it endured. If exile tested Hugo's body and spirit, Juliette was the companion who made survival possible. By the time he was finally able to return to France in 1870, the empire had collapsed, and Hugo was no longer a mere writer. He had become a symbol. To the people, he represented the conscience of France, the defender of liberty, the poet who turned exile into triumph. Crowds gathered to see him, to celebrate him, to thank him. He was hailed not only as an author, but as the moral voice of a nation. In his final years, he lived as a national treasure. His birthday was celebrated as if it were a public holiday. His words were quoted in the streets. His books were read across the world. His image was engraved in the hearts of his countrymen. When Victor Hugo died in 1885, Paris wept. More than 2 million people filled the boulevards for his funeral procession, the largest gathering France had ever seen. His coffin, draped in black, passed beneath the Arc de Triomphe and was carried to the Pantheon, the resting place of the nation's greatest. He was not merely buried as a writer. He was laid to rest as the voice of France. And Juliette? She lived to see his triumph, though her own name never shone as brightly in public memory. She had given everything to him: her youth, her art, her loyalty, her years in exile by his side. She died in 1883, 2 years before Hugo, after more than half a century of devotion. If his pen gave him immortality, her love gave him strength. Without Juliette, there might not have been the Victor Hugo we remember today. So, as the last words of his letter fade, let us not forget. This was a man exiled, silenced, and broken by politics, yet rebuilt by love, and through love, gave to the world stories that will never die. His nation crowned him with glory, but it was Juliette's unwavering heart that sustained him in the darkness. Victor Hugo once wrote, "To love or to have loved, that is enough. Ask nothing further." Perhaps, in this letter to Juliette, we hear the purest truth of that line.
Demain, dès l'aube, à l'heure où blanchit la campagne, je partirai. Vois-tu, je sais que tu m'attends. J'irai par la forêt, j'irai par la montagne. Je ne puis demeurer loin de toi plus longtemps. Je ne puis demeurer loin de toi plus longtemps. Je ne puis demeurer loin de toi plus longtemps.